Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, yeah, I'll reach out to him.
Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. We have a marathon day of meetings, so we'll get started on time. I would like to call the Wednesday, October 22nd Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Starting off by the land acknowledgement, I would like to acknowledge that we're convening this meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Shuswap First Nations, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do so. We also have directors calling in from other territories. I would like to also acknowledge those nations and express our gratitude and our respect. Notice to attendees and delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube on the Regional District website. So we'll start the meeting by doing introductions. We'll go around the room in person and then we'll go online. My name is Debbie Haggard. I'm the Vice Chair of the Regional District Board. Chair Jack is not able to be with us today, so I'll be chairing the meetings. Going on this way, thank you.
Good morning, Cynthia Dick, General Manager of Administrative Services.
Klama Petticote, I'm the Electoral Area Director for Sprout Lake.
Good morning, I'm Mike Sparrow, Director for Cherry Creek.
Good morning, Jenny Brunn, General Manager of Community Services.
Brett Mortlock, Building Inspector with the ACRD.
And good morning, Alex Dyer, GM of Planning and Development.
Thank you. So now we'll go online and we'll just go in the order that I see people. Director Seeger, please go ahead.
Veda Siga, Director for Area C Long Beach.
Thank you, Director Beckett.
Good morning, everyone. Bob Beckett, representing Banfield and Area A.
Thank you, Director McEwen.
Good morning, everyone. Marilyn McEwen, Mayor of Ucluelet.
Thank you, Director Boyko.
Good morning, Fred Boyko, Electoral Area Director for Beaufort.
Thank you, Director Minions.
Good morning, Shari Minions, Mayor for the City of Port Alberni.
Thank you, Director Coots.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mariah Coots. I'm here with the Whole Trucks of the Tribe Government. Click off to.
Thank you. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Daniel Siam, the CAO for the ACRD, coming to you from Banfield and the Territory of the Huu Territories this morning.
Thank you, everyone. Next is the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions from directors? Seeing none, is there any additions from the corporate officer?
No additions.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Any declarations or conflict of interest? Seeing none, we'll go on to the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting dated October 8, 2025. Is there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I motion that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on October 8, 2025 be adopted? Moved by Director Cote, second by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next, we have petitions, delegations, and presentations. We have Corey Cooper, planner, and Kayla Middleton, planner from Lacaney, regarding development procedures and project update. Welcome, nice to see you. We appreciate you being here, so please go ahead.
Morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for welcoming us. My name is Kale Middleton, and this is my colleague, Corey Cooper, and we are here on behalf of McElhaney to talk about the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District's Development Approvals Program Review. So, as we're all aware, the ACRD is facing, just like everywhere else in British Columbia, it seems, and especially on Vancouver Island, intense development pressures and building pressures in the area. And one of the things that we're here to do today is to discuss the entire development process and some of the systems and processes that we've identified that could use a bit more of an efficiency perspective and looking at sort of bottlenecks, tweaks to make the overall system work better for everybody, both the ACRD and the development community. So it's important to recognize that the system overall does need a couple tweaks, but it's more of an opportunity for improvement. There's no need to overhaul the entire system as it exists currently. What this system, what this findings, or these findings that we managed to come across, they were a result of a series of meetings with staff, electoral area directors, and also members of the development community. So what we were hoping to achieve is ways that we could try and balance efficiency with community character. We're looking to modernize processes, and we're looking to improve service delivery. One of the things that we're looking to also go over is a couple of key, not only identification of system efficiencies, but also looking at sort of recommendations for the near, medium, and long term that we're also looking to discuss today as well. So a bit of an overview. The data is pretty clear. The ACRD is facing immense development pressures and building pressures. There's a significant concentration of these applications in two specific areas I want to highlight in Sprout Lake and Beaver Creek. So far in 2018 to 2024, you received 611 planning applications and 796 building permits. A lot of these processing times as well are highlighted there. We've got development permits ranging from 2 to 3 months is the target, as well as a target rezoning of 6 to 8 months, and a target building permit processing time of 4 to 6 weeks. Now, as you can see, one of the key highlights there is that a difference between the planning timeframes, which is a bit more discretionary in nature, as opposed to the highlight of the building permit timeframes, which is shorter, which we can sort of accrue to the fact that building permits are a bit more procedural in nature and less discretionary. A couple of key statistics I want to highlight from our findings is that there's 42 committee of the whole or public meetings held annually. We have about 217 open building permits currently, and as well as 107 expired building permits requiring follow at this point in time. So key takeaway from this process or from this finding here is that in general, your processes for approvals typically follow what we find to be best practices, but there are a couple of areas that we could see tightened up and honed for improvement. I'd like to direct my colleague Corey to discuss some of those efficiencies and some of those findings. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you for having us here today. So looking at it, the main part that we want to start off with the key findings of the strengths that the ACRD has within its processes. A lot of dedicated and knowledgeable staff, but we can see that there is a high satisfaction rate when it comes to the building department processes, as well as from our input from citizens. Less satisfaction with when it comes to planning processes and the timeframes that go along with that. There's constant positive feedback to the building department, and we want to see this reflected within the planning department. We can also see that with the City View implementation, the new software, with that underway, that has been improving all these process timelines, efficiencies, making sure there is no issues when it comes to that. What we have found for the key challenges that there's process bottlenecks, timeline concerns, and resource gaps. Want to speak to specifically for each. Approximately 25 to 50% of applications estimated to be incomplete. When it comes to this signifies that there is either not enough staff availability that is looking at these processes, or there's been a break in communication or clear instructions to applicants for what is required. Inconsistent software and process adoption. This is stating that at this time, though City View is being adopted and being worked on by many of the staff, it's still in process, not fully integrated. That is something that needs to be addressed. Timeline concerns, as mentioned, there's a perception that the timeline concerns for planning applications are not being sufficiently addressed and brought into kind of a consistent approval from citizens and developers as building permits and building applications have been seen. When it comes to the APC and board adding weeks to simple application, this is something that then can be added to that perception that these planning applications are taking much longer than they should. And then resource gaps. There's no formal training programs for specific staff members that could then keep staff longer. Example of that is bringing up planning technicians into senior planning technician roles. That's other there's perceived staff turnover with impacts knowledge, so we don't have that continuation of knowledge going through if there was that training program to keep staff on longer for greater opportunities for themselves. But as we I'd say the primary issue is the processing times. That's what we have heard from developers. So there's the quick wins, as Kaylin alluded to. We have the short-term, midterm, long-term recommendations. Main point here that I want to the main 2 points would be to complete city view implementation, making sure that there is no old systems utilizing old spreadsheets, old different ways of making sure that that's being tracked for processes and everything, that's fully integrated. That's a key point for having internal consistencies and improving that. Removing APC review for variances and frontage waivers. This is not to take away input from the APC for major applications. This is just for minor ones that at that time, most of the time, there is no input from APC, and it's just simple applications and little wins here and there, those kind of quick wins. And then looking at combining first and second readings of bylaws, that is consistent in a lot of other municipalities and districts to just have first and second readings together. Combining that would be a quick win. Recommendations for the midterm, having digital application portal rather than having the older systems of pen and paper, having that full system integrated, having that come through can increase a ton of processing, will decrease processing time significantly. Looking at implementing the floodplain bylaw development. That is something that needs to be added so that it's clear for applications to go through. And then establishing, again, referencing previously for continued education, establishing planning technician career progression, as well as other staff members that could be then implemented. We could see that as a first step and then look at other opportunities. And then for long-term goals, establishing, so for staffing, formal career progression, that is something that we really see, having that continuation of knowledge, having that reducing any kind of staff turnover, making sure we have that continuation of knowledge throughout the years, having these processes being improved and having people seen it from when it started here and then when it's at its completion and full integration. There are opportunities to use AI for application reviews. That is something that should be considered. Not straight up, there's no clear recommendation as to what AI specifically, but that would be something that could be utilized in the future. And then looking at online application tracking system for both developer and public, having people see and be more aware of where things are within the development application timeline. So then there's clear information, clear direction to them, what status each application is at. So recommended actions from this and for the next steps would be for the board to accept the report and recommendations, direct staff to implement the near and short-term quick wins, improvements, and bring forward board decision points as part of the 2026 departmental work plan. Again, we can see the timeline for implementation through the 1 to 12 months, so 1 year, 2nd year, 3rd year. And allow staff to review impacts of these quick wins from this initial recommendations and staffing structure changes on development timelines. Key decision points, looking at process streamlining approval, as well as looking at where additional staffing is required. Thank you for that. And hopefully it wasn't too quick, too slow.
I was just gonna say you put an amazing amount of information from report in a very short timeline, so thank you so much.
I have the report.
I just want to start by saying we did this, the board wanted to do this review as absolutely no reflection on the staff that we have. And we have amazing staff, and that's supported by the comments in the report. They're very responsive and they're always looking for solutions for people who have issues or problems or concerns. But the intent of it was to look for efficiency. And I think no matter who you are or what department you're in, you can always look at ways to do things better and quicker and simpler and more efficient. So that's why we did the report. You came back with some great recommendations. So thank you. Yeah. Any questions or comments? I see two hands raised online, Director Boyko and then Director Beckett and Director Ducote. Please go ahead, Director Boyko.
Thank you. I got two questions here. So your first slide or second slide had something about targeted times. How we actually compared our actual times versus the targeted times? And then I'll have a follow-up question.
And so to repeat your question, so comparing and contrasting our target times versus our actual times. So in our report, we do outline that in a couple of key areas, obviously our target times, there is a bit of a lag between our goal target times and our actual times by about, it varies on the application type, but generally speaking, it's about a 2 to 3 month differential. Things take a little bit longer than our intended goal. So again, from the report's recommendations, I think my key recommendation from our report to identify this is from a procedural processing perspective, we're finding that a lot of these applications are ending up on the plate of the overall approving manager. And so this is eating up a lot of time. So having every single approvals process landing on the single approving manager's plate is a bit of a structural inefficiency we can find. So to your comment, Chair, doesn't matter how hard staff are working, if we're looking at everything from a minor temporary use application to a major development permit application, all landing on a single person's plate, this is eating up a lot of time, for lack of a better word. And so one of our key recommendations is to improve this time frame, is to try and make it so that there's just a bit more delegation authority for these minor permits to staff. And in order to make that happen, we're looking at trying to get a bit more of a career sort of progression standpoint, so that these junior staff do feel a bit more confident and capable to take these minor applications on themselves. Hopefully that answers your first part of your question.
No, I think that's good. Second question is, did we look at how much time staff is doing their normal job compared to other things they're doing as well, such as committees and things like that? So if someone has 40 hours a week, how much of their 40 hours they're actually doing on the job? Thank you.
No, I appreciate the question. Corey, if I don't have the exact percentage, but our report does discuss the main issue, and this is across all regional districts and municipalities as well, is that a huge chunk of staff time is taken up by just responding to emails, to be totally frank about it. It's just inquiries from realtors, from developers. Hey, how's my permit doing? And this is detracting first and foremost from the actual act of being able to approve these reports. So as for an exact percentage, I can't think of it off the top of my head. It is a sizable chunk of their time. And so one of our recommendations in the report is a lot of regional district municipalities are adopting a bit more of a transparent sort of development snapshot, or where developers can check in to their permits. And so instead of having to continually check in with staff, hey, where's this at? How am I doing? They can just check in. Okay, here's my sort of development snapshot. Here's my point in time. Now I can rest easy. Someone's looking at this, and they can, check for updates and stuff. So ideally, that'll be an efficiency standpoint, because again, to your comments, it's a huge amount of staff time. It's just responding to emails and inquiries.
8 people. No, I understand that. I'm just like, did we look at a staff member and how much of their week they actually doing their job versus being pulled away to other committees and other things that they're working on?
Need to be self-sufficient. They need to make their own office there.
Thank you. I just want to point out too that it seems like the planning department never has a full complement, and it is so difficult to get planners right now. Everybody needs planners, so it seems like this department always seems to be shorthanded. Director Beckett, please go ahead.
Thank you. Really good presentation, and clarified a lot of points. With respect to the removal of the APC involvement for things like variances. In Banfield, we've just had a very challenging situation regarding a variance. And I'm just wondering what that would look like if the community was not involved in a variance. So can you speak to that through the chair? Can you gentlemen please speak to that for me?
Absolutely. I think it depends, and it's important to identify what kind of variances we're talking about. And so obviously a variance could mean multiple things. And I think this is where the word discretion would come into play. If staff feel as though a particular variance might be necessary to go to an APC, obviously then it should. But at the end of the day, we do believe that there are a significant amount of variances that are quite procedural and minor in nature, for lack of a better term, that staff easily could be processing at their own discretion. So to answer your question, it would depend upon your interpretation of what would be considered to be a minor variance, but I do believe that there is you could apply case by case analysis to different variances, and I think that is something we should be doing here. At the end of the day, I think there is a significant amount of time being taken up through this APC process with things that staff could be taking themselves. So to answer the question, it would be discretionary, but minor variances likely not enough to accrue an entire APC meeting. Chair?
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Director Beckett? Thank you. Then we have Director Cote, Director Seagath, and Director Sparrow. Please go ahead, Director Cote.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you for this great report. I have a couple questions about the process that we have in place right now. Is a lot of the permits that come in will they don't go to the APC, but the applications will be directed to the director of the area for a review. If there's any questions, that's the time for that. I'm just wondering if that's still in place in this new projection. I have a couple other questions too.
There we go. To my understanding, yes, that process will still be in place. Obviously, applications that are in the purview of a certain area will be going to that director. Thank you. To that director.
So then, if there's some controversy or an issue that director sees that should go to the APC, is there something that could initiate that in this plan?
Thank you for the question. Yes, so with that, the referral process would still be in place, and that could be something that that director could direct and put in that recommendation through the referral, be like, we recommend this be brought to the APC for X, Y, Z kind of reasons for it. Again, kind of falling back to just like the previous comments that Kaylin had directed to with the minor variances, there could be an established kind of like essentially checklist as to what ahead of time, if you already know that this might be brought up as a concern for a particular director, particular area, and set out criteria in which you know that this is already going to be the case, and then you expect that for staff and direct staff. Like, okay, this is typically a concern that will be brought up. Please be aware that this is the comment that they received.
So, thank you. So I see that there's recommendation for a floodplain management bylaw. So should there be other bylaws in place? I'm quite concerned about drought as well. So should there be other similar bylaws that we develop?
Yes. One of the key findings that we have in the report is that although your bylaw has been updated over time, the fundamental roots and the structure and the bones of this bylaw were implemented in, I believe, again, 1971, exact date to be confirmed there, but around that time. So it's about a 73. Thank you, Corey. It's about a 50-year-old bylaw. And at the end of the day, again, you guys have done a good job updating this bylaw, but the fundamental, I guess, DNA, the structure of this bylaw really does need overhaul. It's not fundamentally equipped to handle the development pressures of today. And also the planning philosophy, if you take a read through it, does reflect a lot of, you know, I don't want to say inherently outdated, but it could absolutely use a refresh. So the floodplain bylaw in terms of the climate mitigation strategy is one of our key recommendations there as a key identifying piece that we're missing. But in terms of water table issues, drought tolerance, 100%. In a general answer for a specific question, your entire bylaw really could use an update and overview. It's a 50-year-old bylaw. It's doing its best, but ultimately, I think, yeah, this is one of the key recommendations. Thank you.
One last question, thank you. So I see that Sprout Lake has a lot of permits, more than the other areas, a lot of development and issues with water. And I just wondered if AI could be in place. I don't really want to be hiring any more new staff, but could we be implementing some kind of AI process that would assist and take away from some of the workload that our staff have? Thank you.
In a general sense, likely yes. I'm likely going to intuit that staff probably already using AI in some capacity in their development approvals process already. But in order to formalize that process, again, without going to specifics about this, this would require probably a bit more looking into in terms of what sort of AI processes we'd be looking to implement and adopt. But it's a conversation that I know myself, my colleagues have had continually, is how can AI be used and utilized to help ultimately on the more procedural side of things. AI really isn't equipped to handle those more discretionary comments, but from a procedural standpoint, it's likely something. I don't know, Corey, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just to add to Keelan's comment, this could be something that could be brought into that career progression and education. So you can have people that can, again, initial staff here looking at different AI applicabilities and see how they can improve the process and then build that in. Because there's so many different AI, even just software platforms that you can choose from. I guarantee that Keelan and I use different ones. And so it could be something that could be took almost as a just initial kind of thought for staff. Be like, okay, we recommend you start exploring these opportunities. What works, what doesn't, and then build that into that continuous education and hopefully continuing on with people having those specific ones that you know work best for data programming.
So I just was curious that I didn't see anything in here that relates to AI. And I'm just wondering why there is no recommendation to actually go down that way. It seems to me that that's going to be the future of how we do permits and to help out the workload, because it just, you know, there's more and more requirements that come at us, seems like weekly, from the province that we're mandated to meet. So I'm wondering, are you working with other agencies that are more forward thinking that way with using AI? Thanks.
I would say that Keelan has a comment as well, but I'll add in my 2 cents with that too. I think a lot of concerns that come forward is privacy when it comes to using AI software. If you're implementing a bunch of the regional districts, municipality information into a software that you're not too sure has the high amount of scrutiny and privacy that you want for certain data, that still is something that needs to be determined. And so I think that's where the hesitation for a lot of areas and different municipalities, different districts don't implement it right away. That is just a concern. That would be my kind of input for just why isn't it a main recommendation this time.
I'd also surmise that one of our key recommendations in this report as well is, if I could draw your attention back to, the ACRD is trying to utilize a software called CityView currently. And right now we're already looking at sort of adoption issues with that program. And I think one of our key recommendations, full stop, is just to say, look, no more legacy spreadsheets. I think a lot of staff are still looking at using sort of like, backup, almost Excel spreadsheets to track these applications. So that's sort of first order principle, I think, in order to try and get everybody else on the same page just with this one single software. And once that's achieved, we can maybe start, I would recommend introducing more and more efficiencies in software. But as a first order principle, AI is nice. It's still sort of new. It's a new kid on the block effectively when it comes to development approvals. And every single different municipality, regional district has their own unique potential uses. And it really, generally, it comes down to cultural fit. So I'd almost refer this question to staff if they'd recommend the adoption of artificial intelligence in their processes.
Yeah, thank you, Kaylin. There are some recommendations in there about using AI for application completeness as well. So, there are some tools when we hear that 25 to 50% of the applications that we receive are incomplete and are missing information. There are some AI enhanced tools that we could use that will automatically review those things and communicate back to the applicant. So that would be the quickest way to have a more effective use of that. We also have the ability to use it to help write the reports as well, right? And if there's any way that we can speed up the actual process of writing the reports associated with these developments through the use of AI and then reviewing it as staff, then we're already exploring those measures right now. And then on the building side of things, there are some opportunities for plan checking that is enhanced by AI as well, because a lot of these buildings have consistent needs. Yeah, it is a tool that we're looking at, and I think as part of this in the short to medium term timescale, I think that we will be utilizing more of those tools.
Thank you, Director Siga, then Director Sparrow. Please go ahead, Director Siga.
Thank you very much. I totally disagree with the concept of not relying on our APCs, because I don't live in every area here, and I appreciate having somebody on the area planning committee that might live closer to where the development is projected to be, because they can identify obvious problems ahead of time. So, and that is, I think relying on the local community is pretty critical when you're looking at development. They have to live with the developments. So right off the top, I'd like to disagree with that point. And in terms of understanding the process, it sounds like there are a lot of emails back and forth with people wanting to know the status of their building permits. And I'm just wondering, like in nursing, we have like a team approach where every member of the team is assigned certain clients. And I'm wondering if that happens with the development process at all. And that would, I guess the question would be through the chair to Alex. Thanks.
If you have any comments on her first about regarding the APC, please go ahead and then you can respond to your question.
For sure, and thank you for your comments. Again, this would be recommendation for the APC for reduction. Again, it could be, as Kaylin had mentioned, on a case-by-case basis. If there are certain areas that do not want to reduce the amount of APC input, and that can be something that, again, it can be a scaling effect or not at all. Again, it's just a recommendation through OBC to improve the timelines and the processes. But if that is not seen as a recommendation that the ACRD wants to pursue, that is also entirely fine.
And to follow up on that point, APC meetings are a critical voice for local issues to come forward and come to light. I don't mean to insinuate that this report and all says to disregard or to reduce the importance of APCs. What this report highlights, I want to sort of bring a bit of clarity here, is that for context, there's about 10 APC meetings per year in the ACRD. And what we're finding in this report is that a lot of these meetings typically, again, they require a lot of staff input, writing reports, a lot of preparatory work goes into these. And ultimately, one of our findings there is that it's a lot of work for ultimately quite minor application or development issues that come to rise. And so one of our recommendations is not to reduce the importance of the APC in the process, but instead if we were to consider maybe hosting an APC instead of every 10 times a year, it would be maybe 6 times a month. And that way 6 times a year, sorry, not 6 times a month. Thank you, Corey. 6 times a year. Yeah. Is that we increase the importance of the APC. And each time an APC is held, it's a bit more critical, and the amount of time spent on these APCs could be better utilized elsewhere. And so the time that people are taking to meet for these meetings is better used as well. Thank you.
And then she had a question. I can't remember what your question was, Director Siga. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you, through the chair to Director Siga. Yes, absolutely. We do have case managers for each of the files, both on the building and the planning side. And I would say that, you know, while there is a significant amount of time for people following up on their applications, we are looking at, and there's some recommendations in here to be more transparent on where we're at with current applications. We do have online trackers right now for development applications, for rezonings, for temporary use permits and development variances, but we could expand that and we could make it more linked to our status updates in CityView. I would also highlight that a lot of the time for both the building inspectors and the planners is taken up by people who are considering potential development, whether they're considering buying a property or they're considering building, and they're coming in asking questions ahead of time, which, you know, we're happy to help with those types of things, and we've always taken the public service first approach, I would say, but it does take up a significant amount of time, and it's not tracked in the development applications, and there's no fees that are paid for the front counter conversations and the phone calls and emails. So that is something that we're continuously working on addressing better, you know, utilizing the planning assistance and the admin assistance that we have, and then kind of streamlining our time so that the building inspectors can be focusing their efforts on issuing building permits and doing the inspections that are required, and planners the same in writing the reports and attending the meetings that they need to attend. Thanks.
Thank you. We have Director Sparrow, Director Cote, and Director Boyko. Please go ahead, Director Sparrow.
Thank you. I have a few questions. So like one of the things we have our APCs are 10% waiver frontage, which I still don't get the hang of, but that could be better just utilized just going straight through, because I've never seen one denied yet, even though I don't pick up the process to do it. So the other things are, if we do get a recommendation from our staff saying, what do you think? Should we go to the board or APC? We can kick it back as APC, so we have a tool to use if we feel it might be controversial. So we can do that. As far as AI, it's a good idea if we use it in certain applications, like you said, when we're working towards, like, make sure all the paperwork's in place. If you got this, if you got that, but we still need eyes on the front counter, because everybody's unique and different, and they want certain things. So, but it would be a great tool to have with the recommendations in place. But not as a final result. But one thing you said, we have a bunch of building permits out there, some are outdated. Would it be useful, do you think, to have them put on a website so we can see who the building permits are and who are outdated? And also, if the neighbor actually has a building permit for doing that thing he's doing that doesn't meet structural regulations, would that be something we'd try a recommendation we could be looking at in this? And we have got the spreadsheets out there now in the application process, which seems to tell you if you're ongoing or stuck or on hold. So that seems to be a visual tool that can be helpful, but this would be another visual tool to be helpful.
Thank you for the input into the questions. Yeah, I do agree that having that as a part of, you know, getting people's attention too, because many people might not even know that their building permit may be expired. It could be from several years back, and it's a good bringing their attention to it. Just like with seeing people, the status of that, I would have to just double check to make sure that there would be no concerns with, you know, breach of privacy when it comes to releasing that information at that point. But I think that could be something to be a good visual.
Thank you. Like when I get a building permit, I have to stick it on my front, the visible part of my building, so I know. But nobody knows I can put that out if I've got a building permit or not. And I've seen guys build things like that's not even built close to code, and so they're building it, and you're like, you know, that shouldn't be allowed. But without a building permit, who's going to check? But if they've got 400 to look at right now. So if you had that individual card, you could look on it and say, hey, my neighbor's building something. It's not actually on this list. So it's a tracking tool, which is, but What do you think about that?
This is where I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm actually not familiar if the ACRD has a tool like this or not. But I know for a fact that my hometown, city of Nanaimo, does have a really, it's basically a GIS application there. They have right on their webpage where it's just what's building. It's a very cute title, and you go on, you log in, and you just have a GIS overlay of the entirety of the city of Nanaimo, and you look, and you can see, you can filter by a permit type, and it's building permits, development variance permits, whatnot. So from a visual tool at a look, you can immediately sort of update once a week. Hey, what's going on in my neighborhood? And you can see that. So as an opportunity there, I think, again, don't want to speak in terms of the ease or lack thereof of this process implementation, but I can tell you for a fact that before I even entered the field of planning, I would log on to that every day just out of curiosity, seeing, hey, what's going on in my neighborhood, and just, you know, as a GIS layer, it was very, very good for transparency. And I think to your point of keeping, lack of a better term, tabs on what's going on in your area, yeah, that would be my recommendation in terms of a visual process that could be adopted here.
Alex, just as a follow-up to that, in order to get rid of this backlog of all these expiry permits, you'll probably be going through this in your work plan you're going to present in the new year, hopefully. Would you be going through like hiring a part-time staff member to come in and get rid of this backlog in order to get it done and on the way? Because I can't see anybody in your department have the time to get through this.
Thank you for the question. Now, I think we would be looking at that within the existing staff capacity. So we do have a building admin clerk that's a 0.6 FTE position that we share with the admin department. There has been high turnover in that position as well. So in 2024, we had followed up with a number of the expired permits and had renewed a bunch, closed a bunch, so on. But it didn't really have the capacity to do that once the position turned over. So looking forward to getting into that again. And you know, there are meetings this week already with the building inspectors to look at that backlog with a focus on the permits that have most recently expired. And yeah, we are looking to get back into that, and we would be looking to do that within the existing staff capacity.
Thank you. Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, I guess, we have also application fee review. And so I guess the report came forward regarding what other areas charge for things. So what I'd like to know is from staff is what are the actual costs to our regional district? Just because another area has a higher charge doesn't mean that that's what it actually is the actual cost to us. So it's quite concerning to me when looking at our temporary use permit charge is 600 and another area is 5,000. Development permits we 600 and others could be 3,000. So we want to encourage development within our regional area, and if we start putting our costs up, you know, beyond people's ability, I think that's going to hurt our community in the long run, rather than trying to work with applicants coming forward and developing in our area. So I'd like to know what our actual costs are. Thank you.
Thank you to the chair. Great question, and you know, the report speaks to that a little bit. That regional competitiveness, I guess, would be a concern. Don't want to be overcharging for those types of permits. You'll find that some of the types of applications our fees are much lower than other areas, and vice versa. We have some that are higher, and you know, others that are in line. So we would want to analyze that a little bit to come up with what the expected costs are. We did that a little bit in the last development procedures bylaw update, where we introduced the advertising costs that are associated with that. They used to be included in the fees, but the cost to advertise in the newspaper has increased substantially over the last few years. So to make that a bit more transparent, we pulled that cost out to reflect the true cost of what advertising would be. In terms of, you know, how much staff time it would take per type of application. That's very case dependent. I mean, we have some development variance applications that take up hundreds of hours of staff time and others that take up a handful. So difficult to make that entirely cost recovery, but we will need to find that middle balance that makes sense for service delivery in our community and is competitive within the region as well. So if we're suggesting any fee structure updates, we would be analyzing that and reporting back to the board for some direction before we do too much work.
Thank you. Following up, just, I've brought forward in the past the temporary use permits for the short-term vacation rentals because that's a prime example for Sprout Lake as to costs. And I've had brought out my interest in making it affordable for those people that actually live in these homes where they would like to have a short-term vacation rental, but they live in the building, and rather than someone who buys a property strictly for renting out short-term vacation rentals. So that stands out to me that even the $300 or the $600 is a lot for someone who needs a mortgage helper. Or would like to have a family that lives at Sprout Lake, because we're turning into a community that is all about those vacation rentals because people can make money. The one development that we had that was specifically identified as a more cost-effective housing area already has a couple of short-term vacation rental temporary use permits. So that's sort of defeating the purpose of creating these areas. So I'd really like to see that specific. If you're living in the house, the application should be less. If it's for something commercial wise, I think it should be more. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just about what Director Cote just said, having someone that has a mortgage helper versus a commercial enterprise, I think that's very hard to determine whether they're on site, off site, how many they have. I mean, you're getting deep into someone's business and deciding that you're going to charge them more based on that. But that's not really my question. My question is to Alex about publics coming up to the front counter to talk to either a building inspector or a planning person. And I think this is a very valuable service that comes not only when someone moves out there and has questions about what is ALR, what can I build? Is this property worth the 1.5 million that someone's asking for it? Because the realtor says I can subdivide it, and is that a real thing or is that not a real thing? So that service is very valuable to the public in general. And it's not captured here in how much time is spent on it compared to other things, because it's not a variance, it's a question. But this is where I think AI can come into play, as in you can have a set of questions that are beneficial to say, frequently asked questions list, like what is the agricultural land reserve and what restrictions does that play onto my potential property or what I have in the background or what my family bought 50 years ago before ALR existed, etc. So that's a valuable service. So we have to figure out how to do that and simplify it and potentially empower the person that's at the front counter to be able to answer more questions and have the CityView software sitting there that you can look up information in 10 seconds and tell them that kind of thing. But I caution the use of AI because it does have problems and it is problematic. So recently I was looking at a thing that was under 100 square feet and doesn't need a building permit. And I said, does this need a building permit? And it went through the BC building code and it says, nope, you don't need one, but it might depend on your jurisdiction. And when I called around to various regional districts, it changes what you get told based on the regional district. So it should be a standard thing from the BC building code, but it's not. It's up to the jurisdiction of the building inspectors in each regional district, which becomes problematic. So having a standardized thing that people can reference that is correct would be very valuable and would save time on staff. Thank you.
You have a comment, Alex?
Yeah, I do. I really appreciate the comments, Director Boyko, and as a an organization, our philosophy has always been to be that that department that helps people when they phone, when they come to the counter, when they send us an email. So we want to be able to do that more effectively, and there are some communication material upgrades, I guess, that are recommended in there, and I think there's things we can do to make the application forms more useful, accessible for people, so that it's easier to understand. We do have brochures for different types of applications and how the process works, but I think they can be improved through process maps and flow charts, consistent branding and messaging. And I love the idea of FAQs about what is the ALR, even though that's not what the regional district manages. It is, we are the first point of contact for our citizens. So the other one would be the goal timelines for different types of applications. So having all of that information front and center, so that when we do get people coming to the counter, which happens every day, that we're able to send them on the way with as much information as they need.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And just a quick follow-up, Chair. The flow sheet that you mentioned, I think, is great, because essentially there's 13 steps of I want something done, and then it's approved by the board and adopted or whatever. Having that very clearly laid out of where you are in those 13 steps and what those are, where it goes, and you might not need it, you might need it, and this is why it's important. And having it very easily laid out for everybody. But often they'll run into a challenge at one point in that 13 steps and say, nope, you're not zoned for that. And then the process stops. But there's two more hurdles they need to do in the future, like your building plan doesn't meet building code because you get your plans from Oregon and not Canada. That should be identified in step one, so that the person can concurrently fix multiple problems instead of constantly running into stoppages along the way. Thank you.
Just to follow up what you just said, Alex, about revamping some information. Again, it's going to be staff time to a department that are stretched beyond their capacity. So again, I think we might have to get a part-time staff person to come in for a while and get you guys all caught up and get these things done for you. And then once that's completed, then you can move forward. That's my suggestion. I will support an extra staff member for a while. Director Coots, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question to our presenters and potentially to staff through the chair. To the point of Director Boyko's last comments, would you suggest or would you see it as beneficial at all for us to perhaps utilize a, for lack of a better term, mapping tool for all of those 13 steps, where if I say, even if I'm not necessarily interested in applying for a temporary use permit right this moment, but I foresee myself wanting to in the future, I could go through the hypothetics of these steps and it would direct me and it would give me those potential suggested hiccups that I may hit through time. Could you foresee that being beneficial to us, or would that whole process in creating it take more time than is necessary for what would ended up being streamlined? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. With regards to creating I think a document, or just a very simple handout that would give the step-by-step instructions for what path you would need to go down for a temporary use permit, I believe that would be beneficial for developers, citizens, to create a whole scenario in which you could mapping out. I'm almost like imagining clicking on one and it has a blow up, what potential things could happen. I believe that would be extensive, and the possibilities of what can go wrong and what could be missing is endless. And so I think that would be too extensive. However, I do agree that a handout that would go through the basic process would be very beneficial.
Did you have a follow-up, Director Coots? No, you're good. Any other questions or comments? Great. Thank you so much, and safe travels home. We really appreciate the work you put in this. It's extremely useful. It was a report I actually enjoyed reading. Thank you so much. No correspondence today, and next on the agenda is request for decision. Development approvals, program review, final report, and I'll go to Alex.
Thank you very much. I won't speak too much to this as we've been debating it here and great discussion. Really appreciate that. That's what staff is after. I want to thank Corey and Kaylin, but also Tyler Brown, who led much of the project for McElhaney in collaboration with staff here. The report recommendations, we've talked about at length, identifies challenges and bottlenecks in the process with the three categories for recommendations, beginning with the quick wins and then the medium term and long term. At this point, staff recommendation is that the board or the committee of the whole receive the report and that any implementation of any of those report recommendations be referred to the budget development and the work planning process for 2026. It is anticipated that initial focus on implementation would be on the short-term measures, the quick wins, as you've heard, that improve transparency with the public, and then also procedure updates that would intend to streamline that approval process. With any process improvements and bylaw amendments would be led by, we anticipate would be led by existing staff. So within the capacity that we have, it would be discussed as part of the work plan for next year. If you take any questions.
Questions or comments for Alex? Director Cote?
Thank you. So things like looking at the actual cost of our fees would be part of this work plan for next year, then I'm assuming?
Yeah, through the chair, we would we'll report back on that. I think with that the measures that staff intended to focus on first are the ones that we can do to be more transparent and more streamlined. But absolutely want to analyze the fee structure a little bit and report back to the board. We'll probably seek some more direction from the board on that before we make any changes.
Any other questions or comments? Director Sparrow.
Thank you. It's always fun when somebody comes in and gives you an overview of yourself and see where your deficiencies and other places are, but you're doing good. And for the most part, the reports sound pretty good, which is encouraging. So hopefully we can move forward with this and become more streamlined and get the costs where they're supposed to be in the future, so we can get people to get into their 3 to 6 month window they want to get in, and we can move things along. But it is unnerving when people come in and pick you for it. Thank you.
Director Cote.
Thank you. I'd imagine there'll be an analysis also as to timeline on how we some implementing some of the suggestions, recommendations here, working to clear up our backlog and to be faster with our application process. That'll be part of the work plan. So do we have any idea when we'll be sort of caught up and get to that point? Is it going to take a year or? Thank you.
Through the chair, there are some quick wins that I think we can take advantage of sooner rather than later. So I do anticipate that there will be a staff report back to the board as part of that work planning process for 2026. So in the next few months, that would be a report for the board, and we would be outlining the steps that we would recommend that the board take to update the bylaws that are needed if there's any procedure bylaw updates, or to just change the process in which we are reviewing applications. So I do expect that report to come back to the board in reasonably short order, and at the same time we are continuously working on catching up with the backlog of applications that is our primary day-to-day focus.
Just that Chair Haggard asked about hiring someone part-time to do a catch-up. So, and you said that we would be using internal staff.
Yes, through the chair, the staff recommendation at this point is to focus on the short-term measures we can take within our existing staff capacity. There will be options for the board to consider to do things beyond that as well. So we'll outline all the options, but at this point, I think the staff recommendation on my end would be that we handle the quick wins now, and we we look at the effectiveness of handling those, 1 to 2 year process and structure improvements and what the impact that would have on the department.
Would this be an opportunity for getting a student in to do some of the backlog? And possibly even getting a grant for that? Thanks.
Yes, potentially, and through the chair also, we have heard that there is another round of grant funding that will become available as well. So we will be pursuing that as we have the opportunity to do that, and that may open up additional doors for some assistance with capacity as well.
Alex, and I'm trying to give you extra help. Take advantage of it. Jeez. Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to emphasize that when we move forward with improving our workflows and whatever else we're going to be doing, we keep in mind people want to have openness and transparency in what they're doing and how it's being take place. Make sure we're fair. The first one to come in is the next one we're working on, not the easiest one. And I hear that, oh, your application is harder. We put it to the background. So we need to make sure that we're open and fair and accountable with what we're doing as staff and directors to say, you put yours in first, you're next in the list. And that improves trust in the planning department, which I've heard goes up and down depending on how you go across the ACRD. But being consistent, that's key with everything that's going on. If we want people to put in applications and make building permits as opposed to doing what they're currently doing out there, we need to improve our processes to build trust and be consistent for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Would anyone like to make the motion, Director Cote?
I'll move that the Committee of the Whole receive the Development Approvals Program Review Report and recommend that the Alberni-Qualiquot Regional District Board of Directors direct staff to report back to the board on an implementation strategy as part of the 2026 work plan.
Moved by Director Cote. Would you raise your hand, Director Sparrow? Second by Director McEwen. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next is request for decision log train trail allowable uses. We have Michael McGregor, Lands and Resources Coordinator. Please go ahead, Michael.
Good morning. So yeah, we have the log train trail allowable uses report here. This has been before this committee and the board a few times over the last year or two. So I'm just going to pick up kind of where we left off last summer. Okay. At that point, the Ministry of Transportation had responded to the ACRD about what was required for us to pursue a motorized multi-use lease update for the log train trail. And then that was presented to the ACRD board and they denied our request that we not pursue an enforcement plan in association with that update, and instead we do a communications plan, and that proposal was denied. So at that board meeting in the summer, we had some discussion with the we had some discussion about other alternative uses and allowable uses on how we can proceed forward as the ball's in our court. And some other ideas were brought forward. There's a proposal, or the motion passed at that meeting was that the ACRD directs staff to investigate and report on liability concerns, usage requirements, and how we enforce and differentiate different sections of the trail and different rules for all types. We've gone back to the drawing board from 2023 about the allowable uses that were presented during the management plan preparation, and outline them in this report here. Those uses have also been brought to the National Parks Working Group, where there's significant discussion about options going forward. That group was not able to come to a recommendation for this committee or the ACRD board. Thank you. And instead, they passed the motion that's included within the report that the Regional Parks Working Group recommend the continued occupation of the log train trail by the Alberni Clay Park Regional District, that the vesture of the trail not be considered as an option, and that the working group continue to evaluate further options for the trail, including multi-use and or split use approach. So yeah, we've seen a pretty contentious discussion on this, mostly surrounding the residential area within Cherry Creek. And I'll just go a quick overview of the uses that are included in the report and some of the pros and cons that were identified with the Regional Parks Working Group. And we'll open up for discussion. So option number one, multi-use including motorized, which was what's the management plan was built around. So this option allows all user groups, including off-highway vehicles, to use the trail. The infrastructure is designed to accommodate motorized use, with safety and liability considerations addressed. To pursue this option, the ACRD must develop an enforcement management plan to meet the provincial requirements. Some of the pros identified were, this is inclusive for all user groups, including motorized users. This may increase trail use and tourism. It reduces the enforcement needs by allowing, an acceptable level of motorized use. And then some of the cons would be, it may increase trail use, resulting in additional wear and tear on the trail, increasing maintenance and infrastructure demands, could increase risk of user conflict and safety concerns, and may alienate a group of non-motorized users. So impacted neighbors in the Cherry Creek residential area. Option number two is the status quo. So this is retain the non-motorized lease with the Ministry of Transportation, but also have no enforcement associated with that. So this option maintains that designation. Motorized use is not permitted under the lease, but OHVs are expected to continue to use the trail, and we do not dedicate resources to pursue enforcement. So the pros are this is likely the lowest management costs option. There would be no pursuit of any behavior change or change for users. Cons would be, this excludes OHV users and can potentially reduce community support. Provides no solutions for the current issues seen on the trail and has a higher liability risk for the ACRD options. Option number three would be non-motorized with enforcement. So this enforces the non-motorized designation through a formal enforcement plan and regulatory bylaw. Infrastructure and signage are tailored specifically to non-motorized uses. So some of the pros would be, this establishes clear rules and enforcement process, supports and enables non-motorized outdoor recreation. The cons would be, it's likely the most costly option and require the most resources from the ACRD. It could alienate motorized user groups and reduce the current volunteerism that we see on the trail. The enforcement would be difficult and there'd be, expected ongoing conflict and non-compliance. Option number four is to divest the trail. So this option involves returning the trail or portions to the province. The trail could be closed for recreational use, and the ACRD may be responsible for removing infrastructure and restoring the trail corridor. So the pros for this is like on long term, it's likely the lowest cost option. It eliminates ACRD responsibility for trail management and avoids enforcement and liability concerns. The cons, the big one is this is the loss of recreational access and a big community asset. The trail closure and infrastructure would likely be costly in the short term, depending on what the province would mandate through the agreement. And then there'd also be a disruption to the broader trail network that the log train trail provides. So one additional option was included that was brought up at this table and at the Regional Parks Working Group in the last 6 months or so. And that's a split approach. So this option would designate the northern section of the trail for multi-use, including motorized, and the southern section for non-motorized use with enforcement. So a combination of options 1 and 3. And it offers flexibility, but also introduces complexity for enforcement and communication, and may have impacts on community support. So all the pros and cons for options 1 and 3 would apply. All right. answer any questions.
Thank you. First Director Sparrow, then Director Boyko. Please go ahead, Director.
Thank you for that. We want to give you an easy portfolio, would we? Something more complex and fun. So going through this, and there is a split in the community, it's highly polarizing, and that's fine. The problem we have is we have two distinct areas too. We have the Beaufort area, which is very rural and away from houses, and we have the Cherry Creek area, which is that house. It's a neighborhood. And the log train trail actually goes through it, and it makes more complexity there. So what I have seen over the last while is, since we've announced that we're looking at putting motorized vehicles on the log train trail, is that people have believed this has now happened. And we're getting more conflicts, more interactions that are becoming more verbal and also physical in some places. So, and I have noticed in the Cherry Creek area there, and I showed you a picture of the four-wheel drive going down the log train trail. So we have no way of stopping four-wheel drives going down there because they think they can too, because they're motorized. So looking at all what's going on and the area of Cherry Creek, in this small area, it's only about 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers long, I would be going with a split approach and saying from kilometer 3, which is behind Bob Chase's farm, down to McLean's Mill, which is about 7.5 kilometers, should be back to what it is now, which is non-motorized, and the rest of the trail can be motorized. And there is this trail right at the junction there, McLean's Mill. There's a logging road that goes up, and it's marked by 2 trees with some spray paint on them for slogan. So you can go up there, you can cross the railroad tracks and get up to the Beaufort Range. And you can go on Beaufort Range and come down by the power line. So you can go around this area of Cherry Creek. And this area of Creek has been subject to a lot of people driving up there and getting access to the trail on their quads. There is no place to park your trailer in this area at all. The closest place to park would be by on private land by the motocross pit, and that's outside our scope. That is nothing to do with us. So this 4 kilometer area is it is a neighborhood. They've obviously voiced their concerns about people driving up and down the roads on ATVs, which is not legal. And I think the best way of doing this would be a split approach, where that part of Cherry Creek up to McLean's Mill would be stopped and allowed only people that are non-motorized, which would be with walkers, with bikes. And the rest of the trail, we can look at making it into motorized and see how it works. I mean, the approach we're trying to use is a best neighbor approach. And we've known from Cherry Creek from past experiences that does not work. We know there have been physical barricades put up in Cherry Creek, and they have been removed by people to get their quads in. So stop the confrontation and get this progress moving forward. I would suggest we take number 5 split approach from this area so we can move and try to accommodate many people as we can, but at the same time, keep it neighborhood Cherry Creek a neighborhood competition. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Boyko, then Director Cote. Please go ahead, Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you. Can someone put a map on the screen of exactly what Director Sparrow is proposing? Can someone just log into the management plan, pull up a map? So we can be very clear if everyone's watching this, because I'm just pulling up on the side of what you're proposing. So I don't think it's on the Beaufort Cherry Creek boundary. Well, Alex
They're working on it, Director Boyko.
So while Alex is working on that, so a couple questions. So we did very good public engagement 2 years ago, and we had, I think, about 14% of Beaufort Beaver Creek residents coming there, as opposed to like the 3.5% we had for the Aquatic Center. And replying on what we wanted to do, very high public engagement. We had roughly 80% of the entire engagement say that we wanted to motorize the trail. Okay. And the board took that information and said, hey, we spent 50 grand on this survey and engagement, and people want to motorize it. And they said, yeah, let's motorize it. So that was 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, 22 months ago. And we said we'd have this motorized in 12 to 18 months. And now we're at 22 odd months and it's still not motorized. So the public trust and confidence that the ACRD can do what is directed by directors from the people is starting to waver. So we need to figure out a plan to carry this on. So people want to have some kind of enforcement that will be quite simple. We're not going to have staff up there with radar guns and your license is expired, that kind of thing. That's not what people are looking for. Have some kind of way to quickly and simply take a picture, report something, and move on with their lives. Have a website, have an email address, and carry on. And then that information will come to the board at some point. People want to have signage in place. Okay, this is your rules. Wheels yield to heels. Have a simple little diagram of what people need to do. People want to have that. People want to have a sign that says, hey, you're getting close to residential area. Maybe you should slow down. You know, respect things. But I also have a question about this working group. The minutes from that meeting last week have not been posted yet, but if they're not able to come to an agreement, should we keep relying on this working group to give us advice if they can't figure out how to come together and do things? That's one of my major questions, but are we able to get the map up here or what's going on?
Yeah, the map is up there, Fred. Sorry.
All I see is an in private browsing screen. All right, so that's the same map that I got
We
on my
can't see
screen.
it.
Yeah, so where are you proposing here, Director Sparrow? Maybe you can like move a mouse or something there. No, now we're not sharing again.
We're just gonna bring up the IMAP here, Director Boyko.
Perfect. But my plan would be option one, people are ready to go and do it. Obviously, there's a conflict of whether we should be using the easements on the 3 properties on Talon Road, which is in the management plan, and that would definitely take traffic off of the road around there. But that's obviously controversial as well. So we'll see what this map says here. This will be good because now you can see where the boundary from Cherry Creek to Beaufort is on the map as well. So I think it's just past Desmond Road from my memory.
We're just having technical difficulties here because the boardroom does not show the same screen as what's shown on the Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. So here you can see it. So if you just go up a bit north there. Yeah, there you go. So now you can see the trail and Beaufort to Cherry Creek just past Desmond Road. And where are you proposing, Director Sparrow, and where you want to have a separation there?
We can't see it on our screen.
Perhaps we can talk amongst ourselves and move it around there.
There you go. So what I'm proposing is you go behind McLean's Mill and an intersection there. The log train trails there, but there's a logging road that goes behind McLean's Mill and up over the railroad tracks. And that would be the break point, because the break point between Cherry Creek and Beaufort is about 7K, which is behind Mosier's Farm, roughly. So this would be 1 kilometer more. And this is like 22-kilometer trail, is it not? So I'm talking 4 to 5 kilometers of a very long trail that is in a neighborhood that people are trying to live a comfortable life when they're getting quads up and down all day and night, and they pull the barricades out, and now they have 4-wheel drives going up and down the log train trail, which is a non-motorized trail at this time. So I'm trying to find a compromise that will work, allow the quadders to go through Beaufort, up onto the logging road along the Beauforts, and then come back down by the power lines and go around this community we have built in Cherry Creek. So we still have what would be motorized access for most of the trail, but leave the community alone and not disturb 30, 40 homes for the pleasure of a few people driving in front of their houses on quads, because part of the log train trail easement is over paved road, and we cannot put a quad on the paved road. So it's the best workaround.
we need to be very careful what we're saying here. So what you're saying is we don't want quads to go on that small section of public road and through the easement that we have in the management plan. But now you're directing them onto Mosaic roads. Is that your proposal? Have you talked to Mosaic about that?
Mosaic has an agreement with some of the user groups if you have insurance and you have plates, so they've
That's
already
only
done
in
that.
some specific areas. That's not everywhere.
That's great. That's a worker on the working group can get on.
Can the working group actually, so we're not allowed to be in this working group, so the staff is the only people there. Can the working group take this information or say at the Beaufort boundary and actually come up with a workable agreement? Or should we abandon the working group and just come up with agreement ourselves, like what we talked about recently, that says, this is your plan and here's your enforcement. You need to have insurance, you need to have a plate and go. And we can be done this in 5 minutes from right now.
Okay, I'll move on to Director Cote, then Director Siga. Please go ahead, Director Cote.
Thank you. So I was, my notes here, it's like, listening to the conversation, and even before that, I was wondering what our agreement or what the agreements are for Mosaic for use on the existing, the whole trail, because if they needed access for logging, they could create these agreements, and there's nothing we could do to stop them. I think that we do need to put in some neighborhood protection. This is the opportunity for community members to have their voice heard. So through this process, I disagree with Director Boyko that, you know, we're losing trust in the community because this process gives an opportunity for community members to come forward with issues that they have with the access for multi-use for quads on it. So I don't think that we are losing trust. I think that this is part of the process, and I think that we're following it, doing our due diligence to listen to what the community members have to say in Beaufort and in Cherry Creek and Beaver Creek. I think that we need to go back to the drawing board and try to find an alternate route around this neighborhood. If there is access to logging roads, let's change the lines and make the logging trail go around this neighborhood, because I don't want to support having quads running through this neighborhood the way that it is. I know that there's an area at Sprout Lake that community is quite upset that quadders were using. We tried using rocks, and our next option is to put up a gate. So it is disturbing to communities when they are running through it at all hours of the night. So I'd like to make a recommendation, I guess, supporting recommendation, I guess, number 5. I don't really want to be having to have policing out there. I don't want to have to do that. But if we offer an alternate route, I think that we can mitigate any problems going forward in the future. I do like the option of having multi-use for motorized access on the rest of the trail, but this neighborhood is an issue, so I can't just support opening it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Director Siga. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been a real eye-opener. I didn't think that there would be as much of an issue with motorized use because I didn't think there would be that much pressure. Obviously, it's very popular, the motorized vehicles, as opposed to the bicycling, which is like even on the East Coast, the bicyclers outnumbered the quadders. So yeah, I do like the province is very clear. We're going to be needing to police this if it is a motorized access, and they want to see the policing plan. I don't think we should get into the liability of policing motorized vehicles, and I don't think we should be taking on responsibility for policing and monitoring our trails. And therefore, I'm not in support of going ahead with planning motorized use on the provincial lands. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to chime in now, if that's okay. I agree with Dr. Sparrow and Director Cote, but first I want to start the conversation by saying that the ATV community is a very important part of our recreational community in the Alberni Valley. And I want to recognize that many people enjoying ATV and actively contribute to the ongoing maintenance of Log Train Trail. However, I think we can all agree that there are issues with the behaviors with some of those people using ATVs and other motorized vehicles. While I recognize that many owners of these motorized vehicles are very considerate, there is no way to control an ever-growing group of motorized vehicles. And I remember reading a text I received from a city resident. Last year, my family had to literally jump off the trail to avoid a dirt biker. We were already walking beside when we heard him coming, but he made no attempt to avoid us, was traveling at high speed and didn't slow down or acknowledge us and force us off the trail. That family has not returned to walk the Log Train Trail since that incident. I've also had several other reports of similar incidents. A young mother told me she was walking the Log Train Trail with her young child. The driver of the motorized vehicle stopped his ATV, looked directly at her, and then proceeded to rev up his motor and headed directly towards her. She had to grab her child and jump to the side of the trail in order to avoid being hit. She also told me they no longer use the Log Train Trail. Families that live along the access point in Cherry Creek do not allow their children to play outside for fear of being hit by motorized vehicles being on this road in order to access the Log Train Trail. One couple whose parents lived in Cherry Creek, they were both born and raised in Cherry Creek and raised their children in Cherry Creek, recently had to sell their house and made the difficult decision to move to another community. He confronted an ATVer for trespassing onto his property and was consequently assaulted and slapped so hard across the face that his glasses went flying to the ground. This incident proved to be the last straw. It is not just the noise of the motorized vehicle, it is the loud music, the trespassing onto private property, loitering, quartering, and the constant interruption of their quality of life. Can you imagine not being able to sleep a full night without the roar of a motorized vehicle either in front or behind your home? Not being able to sit outside and enjoy a summer evening with your family? Not being able to even watch a television program without being disturbed? Being afraid that your child or your dog will get hit by a speeding motorized vehicle? This is the daily life of these residents. And just a reminder that most of these residents are longstanding members of our community who've contributed to growing Port Alberni and now only want to enjoy a quality of life that we all deserve. Because I spoke out at a meeting against some of the behavior of these ATV vehicles, I've been slandered, bullied, and have been the target of a smear campaign, just because I spoke out about the bad behavior of a certain portion of users of motorized vehicles. Yet retaliation factor is real. Our responsibility as directors is to serve the entire Alberni-Claycourt Regional District and all of its residents. In order to achieve this overarching responsibility, I hope that we can all keep an open mind. I will be supporting option 5, the north end of the Log Train Trail to be used for motorized vehicles and the south end to be used for active transportation users only. The north end is more rural in character with more adjacent public land, which should minimize any reasons for conflict. The south end is more densely populated. It will protect the legal use of motorized vehicles on public roads in the Cherry Creek area. Non-motorized trails will increase user experience for a wide range of users, including families, seniors, and those with disabilities. Non-motorized trails can also help to mitigate conflicts, should those previously mentioned. And if you remember, a couple meetings ago, we had people from the residents of this neighborhood who were affected and they shared their stories. I will support increasing the trails at the north end in order to give the motorized users a better experience. I feel this is a good workable compromise that will appease the entire community. I hope that we can work together and make the log train trail something that we can all be proud of. And I know we did make a decision, but sometimes board members make decisions without having all the information that is needed to make a good decision. And we don't realize how the decisions will impact the residents of our communities. Director Boyko.
No, thank you, Chair. I think that was a good statement there. And I would be amenable to option 5 as well, but we need to make a couple modifications to it. Option 5 does not mention an enforcement plan in a motorized section, and I believe that will be required by the province. Am I right there, Mike?
Yeah, that'd be correct.
So we need to modify that to have in self-reporting enforcement plan, very simple. But one of the things that I've heard is, and it kind of relates to what the Chair Hager was just talking about, is people want to have signage up there now. What are the rules? What is responsible? Put a little triangle there of the how you yield to other people. And the horses are most important. Okay, they're most important to dogs, to bicycles, to everything. We also need to recognize that if we're going to put the southern part as non-motorized, that electric bikes will be included in that as well, because they have a motor and they're classified as a motorized use across British Columbia. Okay. And that's basically what I would say. I would also ask the chair, who is actually a city councilor, would she support parking trailers for quads at the city-owned McLean Mill? Because there's a big parking area there that is not used very often. And because that's a city property.
That would have to come to city council and they would have to make that decision. I cannot speak on that without their approval.
If we're putting that as a stop and start point, that might be something that the city could support as well, because a lot of the city councilors do live out in the rural areas here. But I'll put my foot forward on option 5, but adding in modifying the motion to include a simple enforcement plan that the province requires for the northern section. Thank you.
Dr. Sparrow.
Thank you. I was going to actually modify the Cherry Creek portion for motorized vehicles to include e-bikes and mobility devices, such as wheelchairs, mobiles, things like that. So, electric e-bikes are okay, but not electric dirt bikes, not electric quads, not just e-bikes and mobility devices. People want to look at trails. Thank you.
Just on the e-bike item, I think ICBC identifies, I forget if it's 300 watts or 500 watts is the distinction between a mobility aid and an e-bike. So there are insurance options for ones that exceed that threshold. But it's something that can be worked through.
If you want to make a motion, I would welcome that. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that the ACRD Board of Directors direct staff to proceed with option 5, split approach, with a motorized and non-motorized border being at McLean's Mill to the kilometer 3, which is behind Chase's Mill. Thank you.
Moved by Director Sparrow, seconded by Director Cote. Director Boyko, can you just remind me again what you wanted to add to that option number 5?
It needs to have, thank you, Chair. It needs to have an enforcement plan for the northern section as well as required by the province. And from what I hear from the people, they're amenable to this, but it would need to be just a simple self-reporting tool that can be developed in conjunction with the Regional Parks Working Group. I'm just trying to zoom in on the map here on my computer. So if we want to say the connection is at McLean's Mill, I would actually say that we want to go about a couple hundred meters closer on the Cherry Creek side to connect to the Beaufort Range. But would like to actually go out there in person and see how that works out to find the exact point. If someone would like to join me on that, and we can have a nice chat and talk about that. Make sure, bring some people, maybe have a little picnic with the Regional Parks Working Group and decide on where that point actually is so that it's actually applicable, rather than just saying the Plains Mill connection. Because there's multiple trails when you get to that one spot.
Dr. Cote?
Thank you. I'd like to refer this back to staff to come back with some options on how we could do this, what Director Boyko was saying about the self-enforcement. It's kind of difficult to vote on this on the fly. Thanks.
Jenny, please go ahead.
I think we have a pretty fair understanding of what the committee is looking to do with the resolution, and then between committee and board, we can add in that additional details based on this discussion.
Okay, is everyone amenable to that suggestion? I see heads nodding. Perfect. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in the favor of option 5. Any
Should we say
opposed?
as amended?
As amended?
Thank you, Chair.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, so staff will be coming back. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny and Michael. And also want to thank the board for being open-minded and willing to compromise on this very contentious situation. I hope you can move forward in a good way. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, anyone. No reports, no late business. Question period. Any questions online, Cynthia?
Yes, so we've received 3 comments or questions via Zoom, and they are from Mike Lasowski. The first one is, I entirely disagree with Chair Hager's comment about hiring a new part-time staff member to do the work that should already be getting done in-house. And for her to comment, I will pay for that, is disrespectful to the taxpayer, as she does not speak for any regional taxpayer in ACRD. The second comment was, Director Sparrow, you talk about the concern about motorized vehicles on the log train trail. All that while you have not engaged with the motorized users of the log train trail. The motorized users would not have to be on the paved roads if the property owners on Talon Road did not block access to a right-of-way that is the log train trail. And the final comment, it is my opinion that those directors that are not in the districts that are directly affected by issues such as the log train trail, they should maybe keep their comments to themselves.
So there was no questions, just comments.
And we have nobody here in the boardroom for questions and none received by email.
Thank you. We do have lunch coming shortly, and so could we have a motion to adjourn, and we'll see everyone at 1:30. Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Boyko. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. We'll see everyone shortly. Thank you very much.
Thanks for a good meeting today, everybody, and we will see you this afternoon.